emotional. Normally, I'm the person that sits behind that camera in my podcast studio, and I do the production for other people's podcast and video. But today, I really wanted to document a part of my life and my partners and my families that I feel is very important to talk about. It is quite a heavy topic where every time I do share the news with a friend or a family member, it is quite emotional, it is quite heavy to take in. So this is a disclaimer because this topic does involve finding out news, something about our baby. He's now almost 7 months old. He is the most gorgeous little miracle ever. But yeah, we have found out some news, and I think it is important for me to document and share this because there might be someone else that is going through this process or has gone through this process. And the reason why I wanted to make this video is because once we found out the news, which I will eventually get to, it was quite emotional and it was so intense to process, and I wanted to connect with people that were in the same boat. However, there really wasn't anyone that I felt I could relate to. And I searched some videos up on YouTube and I just couldn't relate to anyone. I have my notes here because I have filmed this before and I got halfway and realized I missed a really crucial part out because so much has happened in the last 7 months with Arlo. So our beautiful baby boy Arlo was born on the 6th of December, 2024. I had the most amazing birth. Sure, it was painful, but it was the most magical thing I've ever experienced. And that's a whole nother story in itself. He was a really healthy baby. He cried as soon as I picked him up. Everything seemed so magical, and it was. The hospitals do their checks, they do a little hearing test, the baby looks like a little DJ, they sign it off. The pediatrician comes in, looks at the baby, gives a review. Everything was normal, everything seemed normal. Time goes on, we go through the newborn phase, and like every family, it's not an easy phase, especially if this is your first child. You have no idea what you're doing. I'm a first-time mum. I'm recovering physically, mentally, emotionally. My body is going through so many changes, so many phases. But, however, I did know, developmental-wise, that a baby's eyesight is something that so slowly develops. And I know a baby's eyesight isn't perfect at birth. As time went on, I would look at Arlo, my partner would look at Arlo. We would notice his eyes would sort of flutter, his eyes would track in a repetitive manner. And we noted it down. It was flagged. It wasn't a red flag, but it was flagged in our minds. As time went on, I did start to get concerned because I would be with him every day. He was in my care and I would do a lot of playtime with him, look him in the eye, sing, whatever you do as a mum. And I would notice that he would never really look at me directly, focusing on me, whether it was just for a split second. There was never a focused gaze on me, on a toy, on the world, whatever. As time went on, I got put into a mother's group by the hospital, and the day that I went, Arlo was about 3 months old. The day that I went, I looked around the whole room and I saw everyone else's baby either looking at their mum, looking at a toy, looking at the person or baby next to them, and they had this fixed gaze. Their attention might drift away onto the next thing to look at, but they were looking. And in that moment, my heart sort of dropped because I had a gut feeling about his vision. about something's wrong, something isn't completely right, but I didn't know exactly what that was. So that afternoon, I spoke to my partner and I told him, I said, look, we've given it a chance, 3 months. We thought maybe Arlo is a slow bloomer, slow developer in terms of eyesight. In that moment, I just said to him, I really think we should go to our doctor and see what he says, because I'm concerned he can't see. I'm concerned he can't focus on things. So surely enough, we made an appointment with my doctor, and things from there kind of went really fast. So hence I wrote everything down, because it's a blur, but it's so vivid in my mind at the same time. So we went to the GP around 3 months old. He looked at Arlo's eyes and he asked us what our concerns were. We said he has really interesting movements with his eyes. He's also not focusing on me or my partner or my mom or, on any toys, etc. So he got his little light out. He looked at his eyes. He was speaking to us. I sort of zoned out at that part because I really didn't know what was going on. And I was almost worried in a sense that he was going to say, yes, something is wrong. I didn't want it to be true at that time. However, he looked at his eyes and said, yes, these movements of his eyes are abnormal. They're not, normal eyes will look at one thing and your attention goes to something else. But his eyes were making repetitive movements that almost had nothing to do with focusing on something or something moving. He said, okay, I can see it's not cataract, etc., etc. However, I'm going to organize for you to see the pediatric ophthalmologist. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's almost like a specialized eye doctor that is in charge of knowing everything about the function of the eye, what signals it sends to the brain. So it's more than just your optometrist, which is about your vision, your 20/20 vision, you go get glasses, whatever. He made the phone calls to lots of pediatric ophthalmologists, which there are quite a few in the area, and almost all of them were really busy. They weren't in the office anymore. They don't work at the place anymore. It was quite a hassle to get just one person to have a look at Arlo to book an appointment. He got in contact with a person, an ophthalmologist, and on the phone he said, it is urgent. I have a 3-month-old baby, Arlo. I really need you to look at him because I suspect he can't see at all. And in that moment, it was quite a heavy thing to hear a doctor say, because I trust a professional's judgment. And I also trust my own gut going to the doctor. We got referred to the ophthalmologist. Everything was really quick. It was pretty much the next week we got in, saw the ophthalmologist. They do lots of testing. They dilate the pupil. They look at Arlo's eyes with specialized equipment. He looked at Arlo's eyes. He said, I can see there's some pigmentation on his retina. Now, your retina is used it's like your focal point. It's like a camera's focal point, right? And, Trent and I were like, okay, well, what does the pigmentation mean? Like, do you know how much he can see? Can he see at all? What does he see? And he said, to be honest, I've never seen this before and I don't know what it means. So I'm going to refer you to Westmead Children's Hospital to go get it checked out by the best of the best. They've got better equipment than I do. I'll send you there. Sends out an urgent referral, calls Westmead. We get booked in. As you can imagine, hearing all of this with your firstborn baby, not knowing anything, is pretty scary. We really didn't know even what we're doing as parents, let alone taking in such heavy information which we don't even know the answer to yet. So it was quite a stressful time in bringing up Arlo under the first year of his life. He hasn't even reached 1 yet. We went to Westmead Hospital. They did some how can I say, some testing that I think was quite interesting, like using tinsel to get Arlo's attention. But in my opinion, I just think, okay, why are we using tinsel, like Christmas tinsel that makes noise? Because I know his ears are really good. He can hear me. He loves noise. He loves music. But why use tinsel to get his attention? Anyway, I digress because it was a frustrating appointment at the start because it felt like they were testing his reaction to his senses when I was concerned about his eyesight only. The professor came into the room. They used like a mirror with a light. The professor said like, oh, yep, looks like he's tracking the mirror. Tracking meaning following along with his eyes. So I sat there thinking, what the heck am I here for when what we're testing is his eyesight and people are telling me that he's following along when I'm with him every single day. So what I'm doing isn't enough. What I'm doing isn't correct. He doesn't follow my toys. He doesn't follow my eyes or the light in the room. Or it was quite a frustrating appointment for me. They moved on to taking photos of his eye, so the internal, what it looks like inside of his eye, with equipment that is suited for children and above. You know, it requires you to sit in a chair and push your eyelid, your eye against this round thing. If you've ever done it, you'll understand. Maybe I'll put a picture in here. You put your eye in there. So they're holding Arlo. You can imagine this baby's 3 months old. Like this baby can't even hold his head up yet, you know? So it's quite interesting to see it from a parent's point of view because as a parent, I think you're very opinionated because you love your child and you almost think like, what the heck are you doing? You know, you almost think, aren't there better ways to look at a baby's eyes? Like, can you lay them down? Anyway, so they took photos of his eyes. They put the photos on a screen. Lady that was in charge that day, that doctor, I won't say names, but the doctor that was in charge that day, she said, okay, we'll have a little chat. There's a lot more to the story. There's a lot of in-between chit-chat. There's a lot of questions that Trent and I asked. There was so much. There was so much. I could not even remember all of it because being in a room where you're testing if your baby can see or what they can see is quite confronting and quite intense. She said, okay, I can see there's some pigmentation on his eye. So the pieces of the puzzle were the same. So the ophthalmologist said the same thing as the hospital. She also said, I have no idea what this means. I don't know. I don't know. She basically said she has no idea, but she'll put it out to the whole team. She'll put it out to the eye clinic at the hospital and ask people what if they know what this means, if they've seen it before. She said it would be really beneficial for him to do electrophysiology testing. So you can only do electrophysiology testing at 4 months old because of the cell development within the eyes, something like that. Don't quote me. She said that would be really beneficial for Arlo to really understand what messages are getting sent to the brain. As well as that, we would love to do some genetic testing and send you to the genetic side of the clinic because your genes can tell you a lot about a person. We had to wait till Arlo was 4 months old. So all of this was happening at 3 months. When we found all this out and we were sitting on the edge of our seats, not knowing what Arlo can see, not knowing what to do, we were in a very, 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 very dark space in the period of not knowing what was going on. We went on a family holiday to clear our minds, but to also just enjoy our time together, no matter what the outcome was going to be. It was a really good holiday. We went for a week to Perth and then Arlo got COVID and it was a lot. We were in hospital and we thought, wow, nothing could get worse than this. But we were grateful that we could come home eventually and it'll be almost 4 months. We came back, we had our genetic testing that was like on a Monday. The doctor, oh, you know what I mean, charge of genetics. He spoke to us. It was big. It was big. It was, this is the consent. This is what you're consenting to. We will take a swab of Arlo's saliva. That will take 2 weeks to process to see if we can actually use that gene, like DNA of him, if it's like valuable to us, if it's enough, if it's sufficient, if it's good, right? That's how long it takes. The laboratory is full. There's millions of people getting tested for lots of different things. The people in the lab are really looking through all of the genes. So the genetic part of the testing, it's very complicated, but they really look at every single detail in that DNA sample of Arlo to really, really see what internally is different, what spelling of the DNA makes him who he is, okay? You can tell by someone's DNA what color hair they have, what color eyes, etc. But this is looking intricately at what could possibly be impacting his eyesight, why he's tracking the way he does, why his eyes are the way they are. An internal explanation, a scientific explanation. There was a lot of consent forms. There was a lot of talk about future research, years down the track, if Trent and I want to give our DNA. There was a lot. We did a little swab of Arlo's saliva, and they said, we'll let you know if this is sufficient. Otherwise, we'll get you to come back to draw some blood. Literally 2 days later, we went back to Westmead, and it is quite a far drive. There was lots of things that kind of was up and down about the appointment, about appointment times, who we're seeing, etc. So there was a lot of frustration around kind of a sensitive topic and kind of a sensitive time period for us. The day that we were there, 2 days after the genetic testing, was for the electrophysiology testing. So when it was time for Arlo's appointment, they took us into a little room and they made the room dark, and basically what they do is they flash a certain light at certain speeds, at certain brightness, whatever they do. I don't know. It's complicated stuff. That's why I'm not in that field. Basically, they put all these little wires on Arlo's face in certain positions, which will show the messages or waves that are sent to the brain. Now, anything that I say in this video, please don't quote me, because this is all just from my opinion. This is from what I've heard. I could be wrong. To put it in a simple sentence of what I could see was these little wires around Arlo's face, his head, whatever. They're flashing a little light in his eye, going from the left to the right to both, and really looking at this little screen to see what is going on with his eyesight. We completed that test and it maybe took like 10 minutes. I don't know, 10, 15. You kind of get lost in time at the hospital. She said, okay, you guys can wait in here and we'll call you out once we're ready. Once she collected the information that they needed to collect, she pulled us into her office, and we didn't really know what we were going to receive, like what information. Was today going to be the day that we know what's going on? Was today the day that they say, okay, we need to do more testing? Does he need to do an MRI? There was lots of talk, but we really didn't know. So once she pulled us into her office, she said, okay, I asked my team the last time to figure out what the pigmentation was. Side note, yes, she did say we're testing for LCA. That day she said we're testing for LCA, as well as the genetic clinic. LCA is short for Leber's Congenital Amaurosis. It basically affects the baby's vision. So that's what they were testing for from the information they had prior to those 2 days. She said, look, I still need to write a formal report, a formal diagnosis. The genetic testing takes 6 to 12 months to come back. So that's how long we will wait just to know what the genetic makeup is of Arlo's eyes and what it could possibly be. Arlo is now 7 months. I will let you know we still don't have that genetic testing back. Because a genetic condition, it's either from my partner or it's from me, or we've both been carriers and it's formed a mutation. It's complicated stuff. This is science. This is the body. This is DNA. It's very interesting. But somewhere in my family tree or his family tree, someone has passed down this specific gene. The lady tells us, look, we really do think that this is the condition that Arlo has. He's got LCA. So we asked, okay, well, what does that mean for his eyesight? Do you know how much he can see from the testing that we just did today? And she said, look, from what we've collected today, the data, he might be able to see the difference between light and dark. So Trent and I basically went back and forth and we said, okay, so he can't see shadows, he can't see colors, he can't see people, he can't see objects. He basically is blind. Blind is you can't see anything, whether you can tell the difference between light and dark, you're blind. It's not like he can see shapes. It's not like he can look at me. It's not like he knows there's the floor, or there's the sky. He's blind. Finding out that information that your firstborn son, who you suspected something was wrong, is blind was one of the most like a punch in the heart, a knife to the stomach. I don't know what metaphor you want to use, but it really was a very, very, very intense message to hear because you're almost in denial, not wanting it to be true. But at the same time, you're here testing because you know something is wrong. Ever since that day, we asked them, okay, what are we going to do going forward? She said we will connect our communication with the genetic testing. We will keep up to date with them, where they're at, how they're going with the testing. We shall write a formal diagnosis, but for now, we will connect you with Vision Australia. We will talk about NDIS funding. Everything was just like so much information at once that it was like we just received such big news that it's a lot to take in and also to think about where we're going. We haven't even had a minute to just take it in. And the way that the lady delivered this news was really sensitive. You could tell that it's pretty hard to tell someone bad news, but she was very sensitive about it. And even then, it was a lot. We left the hospital and basically, like, as soon as we got in the car, Trent and I kept ourselves pretty well together in that hospital room. I don't know how. I think we were almost just shocked, but not shocked at the same time. And we drove home and I broke down. I couldn't understand, like, how this can happen to us. What do you mean it's a genetic disorder, condition? I'm not blind. Trent's not blind. My parents are not blind. His parents are not blind. Everyone that's alive and that we know of is not blind. No one has a visual condition that intense. People wear glasses, but that's about it. It was quite hard to understand. It was hard to take in. We then obviously told our families that day, and slowly we told people that we could, if we felt we could tell people, because it's on the day you might feel like you just can't talk about that stuff because it's so heavy. It's so much to talk about. Like, it's not just one little thing of, oh, hey, my son's blind. Like, what do you mean your son's blind? There's a whole story to it. This story, we're on month 7 of Arlo flourishing at life as he is. He's a very happy little boy. He's blind. It is something that still is heavy. It still impacts me day to day. I'll have good days, I'll have bad days. It's a roller coaster of emotions. We were with Vision Australia. We've applied for NDIS funding. Yeah, we've done a lot of physio and occupational therapy with Arlo, with Vision Australia, and the girls have been really nice. And I basically do that with him every day. Every time after he wakes up, he's had his bottle, we do physio, we do OT, because everything that we do from now on forward is specifically individualized to his needs, because he still needs to develop, he still needs to crawl, he needs to walk, but how he gets there is going to look different to a baby that has vision. Everything that we do, tummy time was always really difficult. I never understood why, and sure, every baby hates tummy time, but obviously Arlo hated tummy time because he wasn't visually stimulated. There was nothing there for him to see. So why would he want to lift his head? A lot of our questions were almost answered, yet we are still waiting for a lot of answers. So this is our documented story. And I really, really, really wanted to put this out there because knowing for, I guess, 3 months now, it has been so heavy and you almost in denial just thinking about it. You think, how can this not happen to me? But it can. It is something that is just so unexplainable, yet there is a reason for it, the science behind it. If it's in the DNA, it's in our DNA. Arlo being blind doesn't make him less of a human. It doesn't make him dumb. It doesn't make him stupid. He is so smart. He is so clever. The fact that he can understand things with 4 senses blows my mind. Sometimes I'll do things and I'll close my eyes, and it is hard, but that is what he's learning. He is learning from birth how to do things the way that he can do them. And when I looked on YouTube when we first found out, it was maybe a week or 2 later. I have no idea. There wasn't a lot of children. There wasn't a lot of babies. There wasn't a lot of up-to-date people talking about Leber's congenital amaurosis, let alone blind babies, or how to raise a blind child, or the struggles I had with having a blind child, or accepting that your life as a parent is going to look so different to what you thought. So this is just a message to parents, to families, to friends, that if your baby, your friend, your cousin, your niece, whoever in your life, or a stranger on the street has a disability, or there is something that is different about them, it doesn't make them any less of a person. I really wanted to make this video so it's out there. People know. I've asked people not to ask me questions because it's so intense for me to talk about it that I thought, I'll put this video out there. You make with it what you do. This is the extent that my questions and my answers will go to. This is everything. I feel I'm a very transparent person when it comes to social media or my life, things like that. And this is really something that I wanted to share. However, I needed to almost get the courage to talk about it again and to explain everything. And I probably missed something, but that is okay because that is our long story short of how we found out Arlo was born blind. And I have already faced a lot of interesting interactions or interesting things, like going to a library or a bookstore and asking for visually impaired or books for blind babies, books for blind children, and being disappointed. So I am really making this video because I want to document my time as a mum with Arlo, what we're going through, because if it helps someone else to relate, or if it helps to spread the word about his condition, what it is really like, the reality, because I know Instagram, I know YouTube, I know TikTok, everything is a highlight reel. You choose what you post, you make it look pretty. This is the real deal. I don't really know what else more to say. I hate seeing people cry on camera, and now I'm one of them. But people need to know, and I think he's very special. And I know a lot of other people love him and think he's very special too. I genuinely feel there is already not a gap, but there already are some things that are really hard to take in as a mum with a blind child or visually impaired baby, as a family. You know, like there's things that you think about. You think about, will my child ever ride a bike because he's blind? What school will he go to? What will his classmates think of him? What is walking going to look like? You have a lot of questions. Is he going to be independent? And I understand everyone's told us, yes, technology, this technology, that the world is evolving. I get it. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to hear that because it's almost like insensitive to the topic of your child is blind. Like, I get it if technology is going to advance, but at the same time, can't we just live with it and get on with our lives? And if it happens, and that's amazing. And yeah, follow our journey because I know it's going to be a bumpy one. I know it's going to be a hard one. It's going to be a beautiful one. It's a lot. Life is already a lot as a first time parent, and add some spice to the mix. So, yes. So, thank you so much for watching, and like and subscribe to this channel to follow our journey.